Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. Today is Friday, February 25th, 2022. I am Joe Sarvati, affectionately known as Coach, and I am joined by the one and only Josh Crash Davis to go over a very juicy 9-game NBA slate tonight. So how are you, Josh? How did you survive the entire week off of basketball, and did you go half cuckoo like I did, or what?
Yeah, it felt like a lot longer than a week. It really did. And for me, especially as a Bucks fan, it has been longer than a week. We don't even play till tomorrow, so been a long wait for sure.
I would have never guessed you're a Bucks or Packers fan. That's shocking news to me.
Breaking news, yeah.
Breaking news, hot take.
Right.
Yeah, it's great. And I'll tell you, coming back, it's awesome. We started out last night with a solid night. We hung on and got some cash in FanDuel DraftKings, had a top 1% lineup on Yahoo. So that was a nice start, jumping right back into the frying pan.
Yeah, definitely. We had really nice plays there. Sabonis was probably one of my favorite plays that you had out there. So,
yeah. And of course, our presenting sponsor. So thank you to Prize Picks for being our presenting sponsor. We both had some nice winners there. A 3-bagger going for the gusto there, and you had a 2 or at least a 2-bagger, correct?
Yeah, I had a 2 out of 3 and a 3 out of 4. So
very nice. That's the way to do it.
Yep.
So yeah, we're excited. We're going to be sharing every Friday our Prize Picks of the day at the end of the podcast. So stay tuned for that. And you know what? We're going to jump right in today. No messing around. 9 games. It's, it's serious time. So enjoy this podcast on the way in here. If you're watching on YouTube, give us a quick thumbs up. That's important to us. And give us a comment. Hit that subscribe button. And while you're at it, hit the little alarm in the upper corner. That will alert you every time one of our podcasts posts. And we're here 7 days a week for the NBA, and now we're adding some afternoon update podcasts. So you're going to get about 10 or 11 podcasts per week in the NBA. So we are all out there now getting it done. Also PGA, and then hopefully, we don't want to go that direction, but hopefully baseball gets it going here soon, and we'll be going on all cylinders at that point. So excited for that.
Definitely.
All right, man, here we go. We're diving in. Again, it's a 9-game slate. We have 4 games at 7, so it's going to be a lot of action right out of the chute, not, slowly rolling into the contests tonight. It's going to be, boom, 7 games right off the schneid.
Yeah.
All right, first game, Josh, 7 p.m., Oklahoma City at the Indiana Pacers. It is the second night of a back-to-back for Oklahoma City. They did already announce that SGA is going to play on the back-to-back. They did not mention if he'd have any restrictions or not, so that's yet to be seen. A lot of the other players, they played a decent rotation and they're so young. I mean, I don't think a back-to-back affects them that much, but it is an island game for Indiana. So on this game, we've got the Indiana Pacers are favored by 7.5. It is a 220 total, 106.25 implied for the Thunder, 113.75 for the Indiana Pacers. So coming into the game, the Thunder are 18-14, Indiana 20-40. Injury designations: Lou Dort doubtful. I'm counting him out. The other guys that are already declared out: Jerome Muscala, JRE, and Kenrich Williams. So again, they're very thin in the front court. And then Indiana, it looks like we're actually going to have the return of Brogdon. He's been questionable for like 2 months, but he's actually listed as probable. So looks like we got to dust off Brogdon, and that certainly takes a bite out of Halliburton, but we'll talk more about that. Bataze is also probable. Isaiah Jackson is probable, so that's, mixes things up at the center spot. The guy that's going to be a tough one here is Chris Duarte. He's questionable, and that really, changes things in that whole guard rotation with Brogdon, Halliburton, and Hield. So we need that news. That would help to have that. And then, as it's been for a while, McConnell, Turner, and Warren are out. As far as the statistical set here, we've got Oklahoma 16th in pace, Washington 19th. So Indiana. No, wait a minute. I got this wrong here. San Antonio 6th in pace, and Washington. I got out of order here. So let me go back.
Go ahead and do Indiana and Oklahoma City. I mean,
it's Oklahoma City and Indiana. I've got two different lists here. I'm sorry. Yeah. So 16th and 19th, I was right. So pace a little bit below normal. Defense, Oklahoma City 10th, Indiana 27th. So it's hard to believe they're that bad defensively, but they've been moving people around there left, right, and backwards. So interesting game here, Josh. 220 totals, not too bad. How much is SGA going to play? For me, I'll start with that. I'm not running to a 9K SGA with the possibilities that he may have somewhat restricted minutes. We need to see what that's going to be. And then what do you make of, Brogdon coming back? How much is this game impacted for you? And is it, for me, the more I looked at it, the more it was like, I'm not really crazy about it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Brogdon's a little bit higher than I would have liked on DraftKings at 7,100. At 6,100 on FanDuel, it's a little bit more of a debate there whether or not you want to play him. He did have a big game against Oklahoma City last time. He faced them in April of last year, so it's been a while. But he had 61.75 DraftKings points. Don't expect anything like that tonight. But especially because he's probably going to be on some kind of a minutes limit.
For sure.
5 to 6X, I think, is pretty reasonable expectations. And then, like I said, on DraftKings, I'm probably not going to touch him. I do like Goga Bitadze a little bit at 4,100 on FanDuel, 46 on DraftKings. Oklahoma City's allowed the fifth most, points to centers. And, we've been attacking that position lately with the centers against Oklahoma City. So I do like Bitadze a little bit here, assuming he plays.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt the front court of the Thunder is atrocious right now. They just get scorched all the time. I'm just concerned Isaiah Jackson is going to do a timeshare with Goga, and that's what had my hesitancy there,
Yeah, that makes sense. And then for Oklahoma City with Shea back at that price, takes away from Josh Giddey. It just, to me, it kind of makes them a non-play here on 9-game slate.
Yeah, and Giddey has that, sort of, they're saying they only want to play him 30 minutes a game, but who knows what that is. But at 8.3, man, I think he's overpriced. So, yeah, I'm not crazy about anybody here. I mean, Baisley at 6'4", has been the most consistent guy the last couple of weeks before the All-Star break, but that's not a giveaway price like it used to be. So that makes it a little bit tough. Yeah, this game it bothers me because I don't know what that rotation's going to be. Hield, who I went to a few times before the All-Star break, is up to 6'3". O'Shea Brissett's been good, though, at 5'7". So, I mean, you can take a shot on a value or mid-price guy here in this game, but definitely can get stung, too.
Yeah, there's some blowout concern here, too, because Oklahoma City had a tough game last night with Phoenix, and, Phoenix is just a pretty tough team to play. They're so strong defensively, even without Chris Paul. So, I think that they're going to be a little bit tired on this second night of a back-to-back, even though they're young. And I just think Indiana is going to win this pretty convincingly.
Yeah, 7.5 point spread at home. We'll see. Definitely a game that's more GPP-ish to me and not going to be one of my focal points. There's no doubt about that.
Yep.
Okay, so the next game on the docket, I tried to switch to it already. San Antonio Spurs, Washington Wizards. San Antonio's favored by 3. It's a 224.5 total, 113.75 implied by the Spurs, 110.75 by the Washington Wizards. Spurs come in 23 and 36. Washington 27 and 31. For San Antonio, Langford and Primo are questionable, which makes a difference because both of those guys I think will be in the rotation. So look forward to hearing what that news is. The big news for Washington is Thomas Bryant is questionable. So that definitely affects, Gafford and the whole mix at the bigs. And can you believe this one? Would you believe Kristaps Porzingis is out?
Yeah.
I mean, an Iron Man like that missing a game, I'm shocked.
Yeah, Washington really should have thought or dug a little deeper when it came to that trade. But
yeah, well, Dallas didn't exactly get the mother load in return, so it was ugly both ways. All right, so let's look at the game set here. Again, decent point total, close spread. One quick thing, though, is you've got both teams on the first night of a back-to-back. So that adds a little spice to it, especially with Pop. We say it every time, and we have to because it ends up somebody in Discord during the night saying, I got popped. It just happens like every time they have a back-to-back. So little concern there, something to watch without a question. Pace-wise, San Antonio 6th. They're playing quick. Washington 23rd. So good pace-up game for Washington. No doubt about that. And defensively, they are 18th and 22nd, respectively. So not getting it done on that side of the floor. So I'll turn it over to you first here. Break this one down for us because I think there's a few sneaky plays.
Yeah, it's so weird to hear the Spurs being ranked that low defensively, but they are
terrible.
But I like both of the bigs here. Jacob Poeltl is a little expensive at 77 on FanDuel, 73 on DraftKings, but Washington's allowed the 4th most fantasy points to centers. Obviously, Thomas Bryant might be out, and obviously Porzingis is out, but that's not really that big of a deal defensively, I don't think. But I do like Poeltl here. It's a good matchup for him. And then with Bryant, especially if he's out, and maybe even if he's not out, I like Daniel Gafford, 3,400 on DraftKings. I feel like 5 to 6x is about his floor probably in this matchup. San Antonio's allowed the 6th most fantasy points to centers, and like we mentioned already, Porzingis is out. Thomas Bryant might be out, so it's going to be a lot of Daniel Gafford, especially if Bryant's out. So those would be my 2 plays that I like in this game. I don't want to go to DeJounte Murray at 10K. I just feel like there's better plays to pay up for on this slate.
Yeah, I mean, DeJounte's the soup of the day, if you will. Everybody loves him in DFS, but he's 10-8 on DraftKings. That's a gut punch against this Wizards team. It's a hard call. He's awesome, but it is the first night of a back-to-back. I agree with you. That price, it's rough. Yeah. I sort of like Devin Vassell, though. He's only 5K. He's somewhat taken over the starting 2 spot. But I do want to know if Primo and Langford are going to be in or out, because if they're out still and they're questionable, I think Vassell gets decent run to pay off a very low tag.
Yeah.
Really, the rest of the guys, Jakob Poeltl, it's weird because for me, if Thomas Bryant does play, then I do like Jakob Poeltl because Thomas Bryant is a terrible center defender. He just does not get it done. He hustles, but he just doesn't have the defensive acumen. Whereas Gafford, even though he's been getting smoked up by a lot of centers, at least he has that presence and shot blocking ability in there a little bit more so. So if Bryant's out and Gafford's going to start, that may scare me off a 7-3 Jakob Poeltl because that price just isn't quite good enough. He should be, if he was 6'8", it'd be a pretty easy decision for me.
I get that.
Yeah. And then after that, really the bench for San Antonio doesn't dive out at me. You've got a lot of shifting in Washington. The guy that's been consistent, believe it or not, off the bench is Denny Avdia. He's put in a good month's work in these last several games, and he's only 5-1. And Hashimura at 4K. It's tempting to look at those guys. If Bryant's out, Hashimura is a strong play, in my opinion, because he's going to get backup center minutes to Gafford, and he'll get some minutes at the 4. But with Brian in, it just gets a little jammed in there with Kispert, KCP, etc. Also, I wanted to mention, I know Neto has gotten to his number several times, but I still feel that he's going to have a timeshare there with Ish Smith. So
yeah,
not my favorite game. The Bryant news is important, but this certainly would be a one-off game for me. All right, let's hit the next one. We have the Houston Rockets and the Orlando Magic. So this should be an interesting game. It's Orlando -4. When have they been a 4-point favorite?
Wow.
231 total, 113.5 for Houston, 117.5 for Orlando. Houston comes in with a stellar 15-43 record. I can say stellar because Orlando's 13-47.
Wow.
So this is who gets the first pick to take the big kid from Gonzaga here.
Right.
That could be in play. But as far as designations, though, it's not too bad. Garuba and Wall are out for Houston. Haven't said that yet this season. And then Fultz, Isaac, and Wagner, that's Mo Wagner, not Franz, for Orlando is out. So a couple of things here. Houston, our favorite, the DFS darling of the NBA, first in pace, last in defense. Thank you for participating in our DFS World Houston Rockets.
Yes.
And 10th in pace for Orlando. So 231, it could even be higher in my opinion. You got tons of pace. Orlando's defense stinks too. They're 24th. So you got really good pace, really bad defense, close spread with it only being 4. I hate to say it, but this is DFS, full blown. Probably the worst, most, nobody cares game that only all of us DFS people will be watching, unless you're an ardent Rockets or Magic fan. But man, this game looks a little, as I said on the opening, this could be one of those juicy games that gets us into the winner's circle. What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely agree. Starting out with Jalen Suggs, 6,400 on FanDuel, 6,000 on DraftKings. Houston's allowed the most fantasy points to point guards and shooting guards. And Jalen Suggs had 31, 34, and 45 DraftKings points, in his last 3 games before the All-Star break. So definitely on a little bit of a roll here. So I like him, and I like his counterpart, Cole Anthony, 6,100 on FanDuel. He's a little bit pricey on DraftKings at 7,000. But he did have 38 when they played Houston on December 3rd. He's averaged 33.67 DraftKings points in 3 games against him in his career. And then on FanDuel, he is cheaper than Suggs. So both those guards are in play for me. The bigs, Houston's also allowed the most to centers and the second most to power forwards. So they're just horrible. Is the bottom line. But Wendell Carter Jr. at 7,300 on FanDuel, 7,400 on DraftKings, a little pricey for me. Not sure I'm going to go there. So I look at Chuma Kiki a little bit at 4,700 on DraftKings. I like that price. And then Mo Bamba, 4,500. I mean, that's a pretty nice price for him. So on Orlando's side, that's who I like. And then for Houston, I like Christian Wood. Orlando has allowed the second most to power forwards. I think I said that Houston had, but they've actually Orlando's allowed the second most, and Houston's allowed the most fantasy points forwards. So, but Christian Wood had 48.8 DraftKings points when they played on December 3rd, and I think that kind of number is very achievable for him in this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to have exposure here all over the place. This could be, even though it's a 9-game slate, I could have 2v2. I don't want to go more than 2 guys on a team. That's just my building theory. When you're only building 2 or 3 lineups, it's hard to go 3 deep on a team or more on this big of a slate. You just, that negative leverage of how they're going to do can get you. But man, it looks like such a fantastic matchup. I'm with you. I really like the backcourt of Orlando, Anthony and Suggs. It's a hard decision because Anthony's 1,000 more on DraftKings, but like you said, he's cheaper on FanDuel. So it might be one of those cases where I take one-on-one site and one on the other, but
Mm-hmm.
I do think they both have great ceiling here that can make a big difference on the slate, and their prices are still good enough that you can get them in there. I
Right.
do like Wendell Carter Jr. too at 7-4. I know he'll probably get some Jayshawn Tate defense, but he just outsizes him by a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And the interior defense for Houston is not good.
Right.
I can't believe Mo Bamba is only 4-5. It's so tempting because how much, I mean, he doesn't have to get very many minutes to smack that number,
Yeah. About 25 DraftKings points and we're sitting pretty.
I know, but it still seems like a tough, take the center spot to click with Mo Bamba, the way he's not played well this year in general. He had that one lunacy game where he hit like 7 threes in the first half, but that was a fluke. But I don't know. I'm going to consider him just because he's so cheap. Maybe pair, Carter or Bamba with Anthony and Suggs and really have some good representation.
Yeah.
Franz Wagner's down to 5-7, but he's just been massively inconsistent, sort of hit the rookie wall, I think, if you will. But as far as the Houston side goes, Kevin Porter, Jalen Green, both tempting. Green's only 5K, and he's also picked it up.
Yeah.
Green and Suggs have been the two guys that I've seen come on as rookies, as opposed to the other guys, that seem to be fading a little bit, being tired. But because Suggs missed a decent time and Green was sort of the fourth option or whatever in the offense initially, I think they're still a little bit more fresh as opposed to some of the other rookies like Evan Mobley, who was very active and counted on in the first half. So wouldn't mind putting some of these youngsters up against each other. It's an island game for both teams. And, the pay up spot here would be Christian Wood, of course, at 7-9. But, that's a question I wanted to ask you. I just don't feel like they're pushing Wood now that they're just so bad. Or, Şengün's going to get in there some. And I don't know. Do you think Wood is still a safe play on night in, night out?
I don't know about safe. Just because, like you said, they've been so porous. They're just not any kind of a playoff contention team or anything like that. So they're definitely not going to push him from that standpoint. You would think in the second half of the season. So I could definitely see why you wouldn't want to touch him.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I'm tempted though. I mean, he certainly can have a ceiling game, but just don't feel as comfortable as I did 3 weeks ago pushing that button.
Yeah, I get that.
All right, let's go on to the fourth and final game of the 7 o'clock variety. That would be, of course, the Toronto Raptors and the Charlotte Hornets. Toronto is on the first night of a back-to-back island game for Charlotte. Excuse me, I have got a horse in my throat. Toronto's favored by 2.5, 225.5 total, 114 flat for the Raptors, 111.5 for the Charlotte Hornets. Toronto comes in 32-25, sneakily 7 games over 500 in the hunt. Hornets 29-31, a little disappointing. They thought they'd get on a roll here, but have fallen a couple games under 500. So it'll be interesting to see how they're able to turn it up. All the news really in this game is on one guy. That's Mr. Van Vliet. Yeah. If Fred is able to suit it up, it would be basically the best players from both teams going at it, because Van Vliet's the only injury designation on Toronto. For Charlotte, it looks like they're going to get Cody Martin back. He's a rotation player that had missed some games, but they're going to lose Jalen McDaniels, who's doubtful, and Nick Richards. And we already know Gordon Hayward's going to be out probably for an extended period. So this is interesting here. We've got Toronto again on that first night of a back-to-back. So if Van Vliet sits, to play tomorrow, that's very possible. It changes everything in that game without question. Toronto's only the 25th in pace in the league. Charlotte is second. So Raptors aren't going to get a much better spot, which really helps several of those playable guys for the Raptors and makes it very interesting.
Yeah.
Toronto's middle of the pack, basically at 14th defensively. And the reason Charlotte's been losing games is they're sitting 21st in pace. So I find this game very intriguing, but it's hard to totally give advice, especially on the Raptor side, unless we know Van Vliet's playing.
Yeah. I like a few plays here. I like Miles Bridges at 7,800 on DraftKings. I think that's a pretty good price for him. He's one of those guys that I know you tend to play him quite a bit, but as the general rule, the industry doesn't seem to play him as much. And he had 49.5 DraftKings points when they played on February 7th.
Yeah.
He had 46.57 DraftKings points in his last two games before the All-Star break. So he's really been on a roll lately. At 7,800, I mean, that's just a really nice price and a good matchup. Toronto's allowed the 10th most fantasy points to power forwards. So it's a good matchup for him. And like I said, he rarely gets a lot of ownership. So I do like Miles Bridges here. And then for Toronto, obviously, if Van Vliet's out, then I definitely want to go to Gary Trent at 6,500. Charlotte's allowed the third most fantasy points to shooting guards, and he scored about 43 DraftKings points in 6 games without Van Vliet this year. So I definitely like Gary Trent if Van Vliet's out. And OG Anunoby is a nice value on FanDuel at 5,400. He had 40 fantasy points against them on that February 7th matchup, so I do like him as well. And that would be probably my top plays on this game.
Yeah, I mean, Charlotte is actually all of a sudden becoming one of those teams that we talk about, like the T-Wolves, that have 3 really good guys DFS-wise.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why what you alluded to, I think Miles Bridges gets the short end of the stick usually on ownership because everybody looks at Ball and Rozier first. And now you've got 3 studs there. Ball at 9.6, Rozier at 8.2, and Bridges at 7.8. So the days of getting, any value there are really, plummeted. So that's a tough call because they do have the tendency to take turns going off. One of the 3 of them is going to be 50 plus DFS points most often, especially, in a decent matchup like this. So makes it a little bit tougher. I do respect Anunoby and Bridges' defense, and I got a feeling they may be matched up, which is a little deterrent for me. But Bridges is always capable because he does outsize Anunoby a little bit here.
Yeah.
But the backcourt of Ball and Rozier are really interesting to me, but I don't like the price on either one of them. I think they're too high, and it gives me a little concern there. What I'm interested to see here is I've got a couple of different reports, and everything I'm looking through is who's going to start in that 5th spot. With Hayward out, it's mainly been Oubre, but I do see some that says PJ Washington may start there. And I think that's important. Yeah. But the other piece of that also is in paying up for Ball or Rozier, you're going to have the return of Cody Martin, who's been out. So that takes a little bit away. So as much as I love this game, it is a big pace down for Charlotte. Right. And you've got some different things in the mix, with the Oubre Washington and split, the Harold Plumlee split, Cody Martin, taking a little bit away. They sometimes will throw Thor or Book Night in the mix too. So I don't want to, but it looks like I'm going to fade the Hornets tonight, which usually hurts. But I like the Raptor side better, Josh. I love the pace up, and Charlotte's defense been atrocious. If Van Vliet plays, he'll generally play without restriction. So even though he's 8.8, I think he's a great play. If he sits, Gary Trent will probably be one of the top 3 owned guys on the slate because he's only 6'5". He's going to have the ball in his hands, and you're not going to be able to get away from him. So I hope Van Vliet does play so that people don't just plug in the free square, or you have to roster him as a blocker because he's so popular. But Anunoby disappointed me the other day. I'm afraid of the Bridges defense. The 2 guys that I'm interested in here, that if I have the salary, I think Siakam's a good play at 9.3 because, Plumlee is a presence in there, but he's not real quick. He can't guard away from the basket. Montrezl Harrell's not a good defender.
Right.
Yes, he hustles, but he's not a good defender. And I think Siakam would eat their lunches. Now, here's my question to you, and I'm hoping you have an opinion here that can sway me. Do you think there's a possibility that they play Miles Bridges on Siakam?
That's a good question. Yeah, I think there's a possibility they do.
Because that's a game changer for me. So I'm going to do a lot of beat writer and coach talk. Look, because here's the thing. If the Hornets start Oubre instead of PJ Washington, it matches up just fine for them to put Bridges on Siakam. If that's the case, if I feel or know that it's Bridges on Siakam, I'm going to cross off Siakam and go to Barnes at a 5.8 cheaper price because that means either Oubre, PJ Washington, Plumlee, somebody's going to have to guard Barnes, and that would really open it up for me. So I'll be working hard on that all day. If you want to, stay up to date with me on that information, jump in with us, dfscoachtalk.com. You can be in our Discord in about 15 seconds after you hit the button to join us. And we'll be following this closely because I think this could be a shifter of the slate. Not many people will talk about it, but that matchup with who the Hornets are going to guard here, I think is going to be a shifter because Siakam could have one of those 60-plus nights, or Barnes could come in at low ownership at 5.8 and throw a 45-50 burger on there.
Yeah, and not many people are going to be playing Barnes, that's for sure, after what happened at the All-Star game. He kind of
that was hilarious, man.
One of the jokes in that weekend. So,
oh my gosh, he could not make a 2-foot shot. That poor kid.
That was terrible.
It's hilarious, really.
Yeah.
And then the last guy I will say is Harrell at 5.6. He is getting plenty of minutes, and he's closing because Plumlee can't make a foul shot if you put him 2 feet in front of the basket.
Right.
So, Harrell's tempting. 5.6 isn't a giveaway anymore, but it's still in play. All right. Let's move on from all of these 7 o'clock games. We move on now to the 7:30 game. 2 grind and drag teams here. So I'm not sure if you're going to have much interest here, but I certainly do not. I know there's a few players you like, I'm sure. But it is the Miami Heat and the New York Knicks. Miami is favored by 5.5. It's a 211 total. So you've got the lowest total on the slate. Only a 108.25 implied for Houston, 102.75 for the New York Knicks. Miami comes in 38-21. Knicks 25-34. No Markieff Morris. I still has he played since the Joker snapped him in half?
He hasn't.
What is going on there? I haven't read anything about it, but that is the most bizarre thing. And Oladipo's still out, but it's looking like he will be back here at some point, so that's good. The big news is really RJ Barrett. He's questionable, and that's huge because he gets 20 shots up there a night, and that usage is going to go elsewhere if he can't play. Also, the important news on Nerlens Noel, because that's a big bump up for Mitch Robinson if his backup Noel is out. They'll use Gibson a little, but they have been fading Gibson out a bit finally. And then Derrick Rose is more than likely not going to play. He's doubtful, but he's getting much closer. And, we'll be following that because that's going to impact things without a doubt. Miami is the second slowest team in the league, and the Knicks are the 4th slowest team in the league. So that hurts. It's the first night of a back-to-back for Miami. Spoelstra's pretty careful with stuff like that, so that hurts. And then you have 2 of the top 12 defensive teams in the league, 6th for Miami, and the Knicks are 12th. So with all that being said, are you stacking this game?
No. I actually, at this point, it's going to be news dependent for me, but at this point, I don't have anyone in this game. Now, I will say that I think some people are going to be playing Julius Randle because he was so hot before the All-Star break. He had 50 and 60 DraftKings points pretty regularly, actually. But he's almost 10K. And do you know how many points he scored when they played the Heat? How many fantasy points he scored when they played the Heat on January 26th?
I'm going to guess 12.
Not too far off. 22.5.
Wow. Okay.
So at almost 10K, there's just no way. Miami's allowed the 5th fewest fantasy points to power forwards and the fewest to centers, which have really strong interior defense. And he's the only Nick that I would even consider. And in this matchup, I'm just not going to play him. And I just think Miami will blow them out. So I just don't like this game at all.
Well, it's only a 5.5 point spread, and it's in the Garden. So I'm not sure about a blowout, but I get it, what you're saying. I think the Heat are a much better team. But, yeah, I'm with you, man. I mean, if you want a low-owned Julius Randle, this is probably going to be your chance to do it. But hello, P.J. Tucker and Bam Adebayo, and no thank you. And then with Jimmy Butler going down there to bug him on top of it, yeah, I don't see paying that number. Now, he should, if they're going to stay in the game, and Vegas thinks they are, he's obviously going to have to play very well. Yeah. But if R.J. Barrett sits, I'm with you. I mean, we'll see. I think 5.5 is not enough. You know, I would jump on that side of it. But, you know, let's see. If Barrett suits him up and Randall keeps him, you know, can keep him in the game, then you'd have to have some courage to do it. But I'm not going to do it. I am a little interested in Mitch Robb, though, if Noel sits, because at 5'6", you know, he can block you 5 shots and a half. You know, he's one of those kind of guys. And, you know, as awesome as Bam is, he is a little undersized for center. And occasionally when he's playing a true long, lanky, athletic 7-foot kind of center, he can get a few rejections and struggle a little bit with that size difference. So Mitch is on my radar, but not if Noel plays. It just, I don't want to miss that extra shift, because in a game like this with less possessions, you can't afford, you know, to really sit back. Butler's a tempting 8-9. The fact that he's under 9 shocked me, you know?
Yeah.
So it's tempting, but again, with the pace here, it's a little worrisome there. I had Butler that game before the break ended, and he did, I don't know how it was possible, but he got to his number because the game went to overtime, but he was like 4 for 23 from the field. It was ludicrous.
Wow.
So yeah, I don't know at that price which, even though it's cheap in this type of a setting, I just not comfortable there.
Yeah.
Lowry at 6'8", not a bad play, but Hero's back. 5'9" for Hero. What do you think of that number?
That's tempting. That is tempting. 5'9", that's tempting.
Yeah, and we'll see if he's going to get full run. But it's like we said, you know, you look at this game as a whole, and you're just not excited to hit any button. But it could be a full pass for me. I will keep an eye on a few things here. One off at best. I don't know how you feel confident, you know, rostering 2-3 guys from this game under those circumstances.
Yeah.
All right, man. 5 down, 4 to go. Real quickly, we want to thank our presenting sponsor. That is Prize Picks. We'll be sharing our Prize Pick plays of the day at the end of the podcast. If you sign up at Prize Picks, just go to prizepicks.com. If you're a new depositor, when you use the promo code CoachTalk, all one word, no space, doesn't matter if you cap or not on that. If you use that code, you get 100% match all the way up to $100 on that first deposit. And they put that 100 credit right in your account. There's no messing around where they just release a little bit of it at a time. So it's a great way to build up a nice cushion there in Prize Picks. So definitely support them. If you want to join us here at Coach Talk, we have 2 great promos going now. You just go to dfscoachtalk.com. We have the Lucas special for only $77 appropriately. Dirk came up with that idea, by the way, Josh. He whispered it over my shoulder here. And that lasts you all the way until April 1st. So you get all of our NBA and PGA action up until then. Or we have our second half of the NBA now that started, plus the playoffs. So it takes you from now all the way through. If it goes to game 7 in the championship series, that would be until June 19th, believe it or not. So you get all of that with our second half NBA. All right, that is it. How about we hit these 4 teams and get this wrapped up so we can get some lineups built? 8 o'clock game, Philadelphia 76ers at the Minnesota Timberwolves. Minnesota's coming off a scrappy game last night. So it's the second night of a back-to-back for them. Interesting to see how that's going to play out. And then everybody will be watching. It's James Harden and Joel Embiid on the court together for Philly. That is going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, it will be.
So this game's going to get a lot of action just because of that. And some of the statistics here back it up. It's Philly by only 2.5. Nice, healthy 228 total. Got to love that. 115.25 implied for Philly, 112.75 for Minnesota. And Minnesota made a big comeback last night, though, so I'm interested to see how much gas they're going to have in the tank tonight. So as far as injuries here, no injuries for Philly. They don't have to list Ben Simmons anymore. Can you believe that? So they are full tilt ready to go. For Minnesota, they only have one guy out, McKinley Wright. So this game is laid out there and let's play. Philly's 35-23, by the way. Minnesota 32-28. So they're both playing some decent ball. And now for Philly, we're going to see this new era here of Harden and Embiid basketball. Philadelphia is 28th in pace. That may change a bit with Harden at the helm, so you can somewhat throw that away. We'll see how that differs in the next sample size of maybe the next 2-3 weeks at least to get an indication. But I expect that to go up, not dramatically, but I think it will go up. Minnesota, however, is 3rd. So you got Philly in a massive pace up game. And then defensively, Philly 11th, Minnesota 16th. So nothing really to write home about there. So how much ownership for Harden today? How do you figure out Harden at 10-9, Embiid at 11-6 on the same team? Dude, what are you doing with this one? I went 10 different ways from Sunday trying to figure out how I wanted to play this game.
Yeah, it's tough. Harden's 9,600 on FanDuel, so it's a little bit easier to swallow on that site for sure. 10-9 on DraftKings, that's a little much for me. He's going up against Patrick Beverley, and he's actually had some pretty nice games against Beverley. He's averaged about 59 DraftKings points in 6 games in his career against him. He scored 67 when they played, the Clippers on February 21st on 2021 when he was still with the Clippers. So almost a year to the date that he played them, which is kind of interesting fact. But he's had his successes with him. But he only had 39.7 when they played Minnesota last time when Harden faced them with Brooklyn on January 23rd. So, Beverly seemed to have a little bit better success against him this last game. I think that Harden will probably be over-owned on FanDuel. And so if you wanted to take a shot at him on DraftKings at that price, that would be where I would go into GPP. But Embiid is my play here. 11-6 is a lot, but he had 70.5 when they played on November 27th. He scored 60 plus in 5 of his last 6. Minnesota's below average. They've allowed the 11th most fantasy points to centers. Towns is playing on the second night of a back-to-back. So I think that Embiid is just looking unstoppable to me, and I think that he's the play here for me for Philly. And then D'Angelo Russell had a pretty good game last time. He had – that's an understatement. He had 60.5 DraftKings points against the Sixers on November 27th. At 7,300, he might get half of – I don't know if he's going to get 60. But, that would be a little bit of an option for me as a GPP ceiling type option. But that's about it for me in this game with Harden and Embiid. I think they're going to soak up most of the usage. So it's going to take away from the Korkmaz and the Tobias Harris and stuff like that type play, Tyrese Maxey. All those guys are going to suffer from Harden being there.
Yeah, I agree completely. I mean, we used to play a lot of, when Curry was still there, we'd play him. Maxey was a big favorite. Could get some good, mid-level price on Harris and Thibault and Korkmaz, like you said. Forget it. Those guys aren't even in second or third option.
Yeah.
I mean, it's you either go Harden and Embiid, one or the other, or both, but probably not both. But I mean, I don't see where you look anywhere beyond there until anybody else proves they're going to be able to grab any of the usage, because you got two huge ball dominant guys here. Yeah. It's a weird dynamic though, because Harden, his number was down a little bit the last time he played against Beverly, but he also had KD and guys on the floor. But this is the same scenario. He's got Embiid on the floor now, and Embiid's the front runner right now for MVP of this league. So that's going to be extremely interesting to see how the dynamic plays out, because it's Embiid's team, it's Embiid's town. So how well is Harden going to adjust to being the second guy? Obviously, he didn't like, being the third guy or second guy in Brooklyn. And, Houston was just an implosion there. So I can't wait to see how it all plays out. Harden's really been strong with the high pick and roll. That's not Embiid's game. I don't know what Doc's going to do here. He's not giving away anything. So I'm looking at it this way. Normally, I like to jump on something early, but I don't know how this is going to play out. And I think spending 10-9 or 11-6 for either one of these guys right off the schneid, even though Minnesota plays super fast, their interior defense stinks, I'm just not completely comfortable pulling the buy up. I want to see what they're going to run. I want to see what Doc is going to play. Are they going to increase their pace? There's a lot of things that have to shuffle in, besides the fact that they have to get a little comfort zone of playing together. Right. I mean, you're not going to see, I don't think, peak games of these two guys together until probably the playoffs. It's going to take, a month or 2 months to get on the same page. But at least, after a few games, we'll see what they're running and be able to make a good determination here. So I know it's going to be contrarian, but I'm going to fade Philly today and just accept the fact that I need to see before I jump on either one of these guys, because Harden doesn't make a small splash when he jumps in. Right. He's going to come in and contribute. And, if they do run some type of high pick and roll and brush Beverly off of them, then, it's definitely a whole different scenario. So, yeah, it's probably, like I say, not a popular call, but I just think I need to wait. And then on the Minnesota side, like I said, they exerted a lot of energy last night, and they're going to come across a pretty physically, tough team here in Philly. So it's tough to call. I'm not going Cat at 10-2 on a back-to-back, especially with Naz Reid playing so well as his backup at 3-3. I'm not going to reach for Naz Reid, but maybe in a GPP at the best at such a cheap price, but it is going to scare me off of Cat. I think the guys that I'm looking at are D'Angelo Russell at 7-3, who really looked good last night. And then Anthony Edwards at 7-4. But here's the thing. I got to point this to you again, because I'm hoping you have an answer for me. Who's Matisse Thybulle going to guard, Russell or Edwards? I'm really putting you on
I would
spot.
think Edwards. I would think Edwards, honestly. He's a little bit longer.
I agree.
Bigger. I think Edwards. Yeah,
I agree. And I think Maxey guards Russell, but that's just me. So I'd like, I'm actually thinking a little bit of D'Angelo Russell at 7-3, and you're going to find this one hard to believe. At 5-2, Patrick Beverly's not a bad play, because I think Harden guards him.
Yeah. Yeah, he's had some games. He's had some pretty successful games against Harden for sure. I
The
can see that.
concern is foul trouble, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because he's guarding Harden. So we'll
Yeah.
see. Yeah. So I know people are going to be diving on this game. They're going to have, Embiid or Harden on one side, Cat or, Edwards or something on the other. But I'm not spending much salary here. Maybe a Beverly Russell. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Anything
sorry to
for,
rain on everybody's parade.
anyone like Jared Vanderbilt or anything like that? Or
Vanderbilt's fine, but he split time a lot with McDaniels lately.
yeah.
And Beasley, they try to squeeze some minutes in. He's not getting run at any big spots now that, Reed's just really been playing strictly backup center. Just a little too risky on a 9-game slate for me.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. All right, man. 3 games left. 9:00er. Dallas Mavericks and Luka against the Utah Jazz. Utah is favored by 6. It's a 216.5 total. Not a good total. 105.25 for Dallas. 111.25 for the Utah Jazz. Coming into this one, Dallas is 35-24. Utah 36-22. You have a questionable tag on Reggie Bullock, and that's a true questionable tag. He's 50-50 to play. Trey Burke, also questionable. He missed. He may be back. Marquise Chris, doubtful. Tim Hardaway and Theo Pinson out. For Utah, you've got Rudy Gay is doubtful. And you've got Mr. Butler. Jared Butler is out. So key guys back for most teams other than the Bullock news. That's important. But the problem with this game, Crash, it almost falls into that Heat Knicks kind of feel for me, just because you've got Dallas, who's now the slowest team in the league. It's Luka, with the ball for about 18 seconds of possession. So they're just playing super slow. Utah, we know, never super fast. They're 18th. And then you've got 2 top 9 defenses in the league, Dallas 5th and Utah 9th. So even though it's an island game, 2 slower teams, the elevation in Utah, this one scares me as well.
Yeah, Luka's struggled. He's only had about 40 DraftKings points in 7 games against Utah in his career. So he has not had a lot of success against them. In 11-8, there's no way I can touch that. I do like Bojan Bogdanovic a little bit. He's 5,100 on FanDuel, 5,800 on DraftKings. Had about 34 DraftKings points last time they played on Christmas Day. He's been playing really well lately. I like Bogdanovic here, and that's about it for me. I just don't like this game. Like you said, it's a lot like that Miami-New York game for me.
Yeah, I mean, the only guy, Luke is still tempting to me. I went with DeRozan last night. Yeah. He was my number 1 play. Everybody thought I was crazy at his price with all the other good buy-ups. And he is playing so well. He only shot 71% in that game.
I know.
Increased the streak that he broke of Wilt Chamberlain's now to 8.
Yeah, he's 2 from Jordan.
35. What's that?
He's 2 from Jordan now. He's 2 games behind Jordan on that streak.
Yeah, I'm just so impressed with how he's played and loved watching that game. But it's almost the same thing here. I think people are going to feel the same way you do. Is 11-8 against Utah? No way I'm touching that. But when a guy's in that heavy of a groove, and his usage numbers the last 3 weeks are a joke. Those usage numbers are like LeBron when he was the only good guy in Cleveland. Michael Jordan, in Chicago. We're talking usage numbers you don't see very often. So I'm still tempted. I'm not going there at this second, but 11-8, I know it's a price, but I'm still tempted. You may need his. If he has 60 DFS points tonight, that's not that great for him. Right. He's been 70s, 80s, and I just don't know if you can chase that many points because you don't have the Joker, you don't have Giannis. Yeah. There's not other guys you can say, okay, let's take that 75 and move on,
Yeah, if everyone, it makes sense from the standpoint if everybody plays Harden, Embiid, and LeBron, if LeBron plays, then Luka's going to be, if he scores 70 to 80, I mean, you're going to be sitting at the top.
Exactly. So I'm tempted. I just have to make sure, value is going to open up throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
With 18 teams playing, we're going to get a couple of no-brainer plays with some people sitting out. So Luka's on the fence for me. I just, I somewhat feel the same way as far as I did with DeRozan yesterday. Not quite as confident as I was yesterday with him, but he's still in my pool. The guy that I'm considering, though, is Gobert. It's a broken record with me attacking the center position with Dallas, but, it is a concern that Dallas is the slowest team in the league. So it does limit Gobert's rebound potential, but he should dominate the paint. I mean, there's no way Powell, Kleba, whoever else they try to play. Maybe they haven't dusted off Boban in months. So I don't know how they're going to stop Gobert rebounding. I mean, if this doesn't look like a 15 to 18 rebound game for Gobert, I don't know what does, especially if Dallas can keep it close enough. It's only a 6-point spread. So I'm thinking about Gobert. And, for me, Reggie Bullock news is huge. Not because I want to play Reggie Bullock or how it affects the Mavericks, but Donovan Mitchell. If Donovan Mitchell has to be guarded by whomever, they're going to probably try to play Josh Green on him or somebody that can't guard him. Let's put it that way. But if Bullock plays, Bullock can match up. He's had some good success with Mitchell. So I know this game sucks and the numbers suck, but if Bullock sits, I think Mitchell's a really sharp play at 8-7, and he's going to be super low owned.
Yeah.
If Bullock plays, then I think I'd shift more to Gobert. I'm not going to go two big price guys for Utah against the slowest team in the league, but one or the other I think is a good play. And really after Luka, you can think, Jalen Brunson at 6'9", but that's like mid-tier pricing now. But he's going to have, with Bullock out, because he does take a decent amount of threes. It does, if he's out, it elevates Brunson. So Brunson's not a bad play, but I'd prefer to go Luka if I can find a way to get him in there.
Yeah.
All right, man. Two more. Another 9 o'clock game. New Orleans Pelicans, Phoenix Suns. Phoenix played a long, closer game than anybody expected against the Thunder last night. So we'll see about Phoenix on the second night of a back-to-back here. Island game for Phoenix. Phoenix is an 8.5-point favorite, 225.5 total, 108.5 for the Pels, 117, which is a nice, juicy number for the Suns. Pelicans come in 23-36. Phoenix 49-10. They're just unbelievable.
Yeah.
For the Pels, you've got two guys out, Larry Nance and our buddy Cheeseburgers Williamson still out. For Phoenix, Cameron Payne doubtful. We saw point guard Booker or Devin Booker last night, and he just, man, we deserved a bonus for our Booker assists over bet on Prize Picks last night.
Almost doubled it. It was 6.
Yes.
So
they should have a bonus when you double a prediction.
Right.
But with Payne still out, obviously, it wasn't going to the backups there. No Elf off the shelf or anything like that. It was Booker at point, really, for the most part. But they also have Kaminsky, Chris Paul, and Sarge out. So, it's interesting. 49-10 at home against a really lousy Pelicans team. But the Pels are insistent that they're trying to get into the playoffs in that 9 or 10 spot. So they're playing hard at least, and they're really pushing for it. So we'll see, if they can give Phoenix any type of pushback. That 8.5-point spread is a little bit scary. A couple of things, though. You've got 22 in pace for the Pels, 9th for Phoenix. So they usually do push some possessions. Pels not good defensively at 23. Phoenix shut down D at 3. So interesting game here. I think there's a few gems you could pluck out of it, but not racing to it anyway. I would say of all the games on the slate, this is the one, even though it's the second night of a back-to-back, I know Chris Paul has an impact on the Suns. I still think they could smack the Pelicans around a bit.
Yeah, I like the main play I like here is Cam Johnson with him in the starting lineup now at 4,200 on FanDuel, 4,800 on DraftKings. He had 32 DraftKings points last time they played New Orleans on January 4th. But like I said, with him starting at that price, he's still priced like he's coming off the bench. He had 37 DraftKings points last night against Oklahoma City. So if he's going to be getting 30 plus, then at 4,200 or 4,800, I think he's very much in play for me.
What about Devin Booker going right back to him being the playmaking point guard?
Well, I do think, like you said, that this could be a little bit of a blowout for Phoenix. I think they could pull away in this game, being at home. I think that 9,200. It's not like he's 7,500 or something like that, like he was earlier this year.
Yeah.
If Reggie Bullock plays, I'm probably going to be looking at Donovan Mitchell, like you mentioned. I think that's a pretty sharp play, and he's right around that same price point. So he's a little bit cheaper than Booker, actually. So I think that's probably where I would go. Don't really want to go to CJ McCollum as well as he's been playing. It's just a tough matchup, like you mentioned. So pretty much Cam Johnson for me.
Yeah, I agree. The Pelicans are in our little, three studs type of a pool with the teams that we've mentioned, because now you've got CJ at 8.6, Ingram at 7.7, and Joe Val at 7.8. All three of them with potential,
Right.
to have a big night. But, does that start chopping away at each other a little bit as well,
Yeah, definitely.
So there's a couple of things there. I sort of like the secondary guys. I'm going to try to make a little bit of value out of this game. I do like Mikal Bridges at the 2, which he's starting at now at 6.1. Cam Johnson at 4.8 at the 3. I think those two guys are a nice little value. Jay Crowder went nuts last night at 4.6. So, when are you going to get that Crowder? As soon as you roster him, then he's going to throw 11 on the board,
Yeah, he'll go 3 for 10 tonight. So
yes. Yep. So really, Bridges Johnson, I'll tell you what, Ayton drives me absolutely crazy. I don't like him. I played him last night because it was just, I felt a perfect matchup. But he's such a dog, and you can't count on him. At 6'8", he's overpriced because they're going to give a good chunk of minutes to McGee at 4.3. I'm not interested. So really it's Bridges or Johnson on that side for me. And then because the Pelicans just have so many standouts, I don't think the secondary guy of Jones, he's just sort of lost in the shuffle a bit. He's becoming more of just a defensive guy. He's in there a lot. He gets a lot of minutes. I like him, but he's definitely not a top 3 option anymore with McCollum, Ingram, and Joe Val in there. Jackson Hayes is a bit of a wild card, though. He's only 4.8. If he continues to start, he can get to his number pretty quick.
Yeah.
Especially against, he's going to be over in size against guys like Crowder and Torrey Craig, because, Hayes is really a center, if you will. So he might be a sneaky little play at a cheaper price that would fit into this game.
Yeah.
All right, man, we got the big duo here. Everybody excited for the terrible Clippers-Lakers game. They are just not good, these two teams. Hard to believe that both of them are this bad. It's been a while since both were so bad. But it's a tight spread here. Lakers favored by 2, a 223 total, 110.5 for the Clippers, 112.5 for the Lakers. So interesting here. You've got Preston for the Clippers because, they've been finding guys everywhere to fill in minutes. He's probable, but George, Leonard, and Powell remain out for some time. LeBron's the big thing here. Usually he's listed as probable. He's listed as questionable. Generally, when he's listed as questionable, he plays. I'm counting him in for right now. I think he goes. And then you've got Carmelo Anthony. Looks like he's going to finally return to the Lakers lineup, which changes a few things in the rotation.
Yeah.
Bradley, Davis, and Nunn remain out. Statistically speaking here, Clippers 14th in pace, Lakers playing fast at 5. Defensively, Clippers are 8th, Lakers respectable at 15th. So, I mean, numbers wise, the Lakers are playing well enough to win a few games, but neither team has really gotten that piece of it done. I mean, the Clippers are sitting at below 500 at 30 and 31, and same thing for the Lakers, 27 and 31. So it's get real time for both of these teams if they're going to get into that playoff hunt. So it's going to be pretty interesting there. What do you think about the breakdown here of this game?
Yeah, I actually like this game a little bit. Reggie Jackson, 6,900 on FanDuel. I like that price. The Lakers have allowed the second most fantasy points to point guards. He had 49 DraftKings points when they played on February 3rd, so it hasn't been that long since they played. Luke Kennard with Norman Powell out, I think, at 4,000. The Lakers have allowed the 9th most fantasy points to shooting guards. I feel like he's been in a pretty strong rhythm lately. So I like him. Malik Monk's in play for me at 4,900 on FanDuel, 5,600 on DraftKings. He had 41.8 when they played the Clippers on February 3rd. With AD out, you know, it's going to be a lot of LeBron and Malik Monk, I think, that are going to be scoring a lot of the points. And then, of course, LeBron, if he plays at 10.6 on DraftKings, 10.7 on FanDuel, just about the same price on both sites. He scored right under 60 DraftKings points per game this year with 20 games without AD. So I do like LeBron here. And then your guy, Marcus Morris, I think is in play. 6,200 on FanDuel, 6,400 on DraftKings. He had 45.3 when they played on February 3rd. So I think there's quite a few plays on both sides that I like, maybe two and two here.
Wow. You're going to be late night sweat big time.
Yeah.
Very nice. Yeah, I'm not as crazy about this game. I just, both teams just seem so out of sync to me. I'm not seeing, a ton here. I do like LeBron, though. I'll give you that. He's one of my favorite pay-ups on the slate. He's 10.6, which I think is fair for the dominant usage he's getting. He is the only guy on the Lakers side that I like. I'm probably going to go there. But, again, there are two. This is the only 10 o'clock game. That's the problem, Josh. So what if you have, you got to have a plan, because if LeBron doesn't play and it comes out late, what is the backup? There's not a whole lot to go to. You're going to get stuck scrambling around here. So have a 2v2 ready if you are going to put LeBron, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to have a secondary guy to go to if LeBron sits, whether it be, I don't want it to be Russell Westbrook, but it may be, but Morris on the other side, you just have to be prepared for it. But
what time
hopefully we have the news.
Play?
Yeah, if we have the news before the 9 o'clock games, we're cool.
Yeah.
If we don't, then you have to really be prepared so you don't get stuck. Because you
Yeah,
don't want to. Go ahead.
I would say I'll probably pivot to like Luka or Donovan Mitchell or something like that if we get the news that LeBron's out. So
right. Yeah, and if you have the time to do that, that's great. If just don't get stuck flipping from LeBron to Stanley Johnson. that might sting a bit.
Yeah, just a little bit.
As far as the Clippers side, you have Morris, a little bit of interest there. Reggie's just a little pricey for me at 7.6 on FanDuel on DraftKings. I agree. Yeah. FanDuel, he's a much better option. But other than that, it's just chopped up a lot with all their guys. I don't really trust the rest of the squad. So I'll be pretty light here. Probably one Clipper, one Laker, and probably forcing the Clipper in just to protect my LeBron play is what it's going to come down to.
If LeBron's out, though, would you not play Malik Monk? I mean, at 4,900 on FanDuel?
If LeBron sits, it's a completely different scenario. I would think of possibly going to Russ and Monk just out of the fact. I mean, it just changes everything. But I really don't think LeBron sits.
Yeah.
I mean, every game matters right now to them.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But
not enough to make a trade.
Yeah, I guess not. Yeah, Palenka was at Disney World, so that tells you where they're at.
Yeah.
All right, man. It is the Prize Picks selections of the day. Would you like to share your play for Prize Picks today?
Yeah, so I'm going to take the over on – where did my play go? Over on Jalen Suggs at 14.5 points.
Okay, I like that.
Over on Kyle Lowry at 12.5 points, which seems really low to me.
It is low, definitely low. I like it. For my two-bagger, I'm going – this is an obscure guy, weird, but hey, that's what I love about Prize Picks.
Mm-hmm.
They have Doug McDermott at 12.5 points, real points. And so I'm going under that. I mean, even if he pops a couple threes, I'm not comfortable with Pop's rotation, especially, on the fact that it's the first night of a back-to-back. So I'm taking the under there. And then I'm going over 6 assists for Cole Anthony. I just can't get away from that game. I'm with you. I like Anthony and Suggs to get a lot here. This Orlando-Houston game, again, my key game of the night. I think Anthony, backs into 6 assists. Even though he's a shooting point guard, there's just going to be a lot of points, a lot of pace, a lot of possessions. So that's my Prize Picks two-bagger right there.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, that is it. 9 games up, 9 games down. Awesome Friday slate after the All-Star break. Definitely excited for it. Check us out, dfscoachtalk.com. On the way out here, a quick thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and also hit the alarm in the corner there so you know when we're posting. If you're listening on audio, wherever podcast can be heard, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, take a second, give us a 5-star quick comment. That will qualify you for a random selection of one winner for a week membership at the end of this month. So that is it. Any final words, Crash?
No, we're all in on NBA right now. There's no football that's over, so we're just diving deep into NBA, and just want to encourage all of our members to be excited for what's going to come in the next several months with NBA. We're going to have, like you said, 2 podcasts a day or at least several days of the week now with you and Andrew. So I think, Andrew's going to be providing some lineups too. So I think that's going to be really nice to have you guys kind of giving both of your opinions on our lineups. So,
yeah, and we have you 2 days a week on Friday and Saturday. And, I'm with Gundacker tomorrow too for a live. So check that out. We'll post that in our Discord and on Twitter. And then in the morning, you and I are together, and tomorrow's our 2 Brains Are Better Than One FanDuel GPP build. So we got all kinds of stacked up action going on here, buddy.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's get it done tonight. Let's get some winners, and we'll definitely be back again tomorrow when we look to crush it in NBA DFS.